Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this afternoon's 3CX training on 3CX built for enterprise communication. I just wanted to check if you can see my screen and if you can hear me loud and clear. Okay, thank you very much. We have a very tight schedule. There are 44 slides. Okay, some of them are chapters anyway. 44 slides, 60 minutes time to go through that all. Feel free to add questions to the questions section. I will go through them at the end of the presentation. We generally cover quite a lot of topics in that presentation, in that slideshow, which might be covering a lot of what you would like to know. 3CX is a phone system that is, generally covering all of the enterprise communication features that are required. We have messaging included, call center reporting, SIP trunking, so phone lines, of course, video conferencing. We have CRM integration, Office 365 integration. We can literally connect from everywhere. It is extremely scalable, and by that also very, very versatile. One question came up already, Google Workspace integration. I will have to check for that, if there is any Google integration in what form ever. From what I know, that is not something that is offered, but I might be wrong because there has been lately a lot of stuff added with the new version 20. So I will get back to you on that. Okay. Okay, we look at the flexibility, we look at the scalability, messaging, call center, reporting, trunking, video conferencing, CRM integration, Office 365 integration. We look at the 3CX ecosystem connecting from everywhere, and also we look a little bit on IP phones. Of course, you can imagine we can't go really into the details. The whole webinar is meant to give you an overview on what 3CX can do on a wider scale, on a bigger scale when we talk about enterprises. Now, 3CX comes as 4 different licensing forms. We have the startup licensing, which is more or less like your very, very basic entry to the world of 3CX. There is a free and an SMB. The free is free more or less forever. Up to 10 users can use it. This is hosted by 3CX only, has limited features, and there is no direct upgrade path to the dedicated versions from 3CX. Doesn't matter if it's free or SMB, there's no direct upgrade path. So if you start with a startup, at some point in time, if your customer grows, you have to rebuild the whole system. That is latest coming to the point when your customer reaches 20 extensions. So from 20, that's SMB. So from 20 extensions onwards, we have to go with dedicated. Dedicated can be hosted by 3CX. 3CX then literally takes the whole management. So the backend is managed by 3CX. It is hosted by 3CX. There we have a limitation of up to 750 extensions based on version 20 update 1. We can have it self-hosted in Azure, AWS, OVH, DigitalOcean, Lightsail, Google Cloud, and any hosting provider that is using OpenStack version 2 plus. And we can have it on premise. If we use self-hosted, we have more control on the system, we have control on the backend, however, also just as much as the hosting provider allows us on-prem, or if we have our own cloud environment, there we have full control over anything. This webinar focuses on dedicated installs only. Also, they are mainly on self-hosted or on-prem, so installs that can be more or less fully controlled by the IT administrator or the administration, the IT department of the business. We're talking more likely on big businesses, big environments here. We will see that then further down the track. Now, the scalability of 3CX comes down to the amount of extensions and simultaneous calls. 3CX doesn't calculate the pricing based on actual extensions on the system, but on simultaneous calls. This gives sometimes some interesting options setups where we can have a lot of extensions on the system, but if they do not do that many phone calls, we can run on a very pricey scale with so on a low priced scale with much less simultaneous calls because we don't make that many calls, like for example a call center. However, even if we use a call center, we still can be very cheaper than other competitors who base who scale their pricing based on the amount of extensions. Um, the system in the end is virtually floating on the hardware since it is a software PBX, and we enable the features based on the licensing. We can have a professional license, and at some point we might need a feature that is on a enterprise license. Then we upgrade to enterprise, and from that moment on, we then have an enterprise key. We can use the same key. We just change that in the backend. It's 3CX who changes that in the backend. And then from that on, we have the enterprise features enabled, or we require more simultaneous calls. We then upgrade the system from, let's say, 32 simultaneous calls up to 64, or from 64 up to 128 simultaneous calls. And from that moment onwards, we actually use that amount of simultaneous calls. Of course, in that regard, then there we also might require that the VoIP provider opens the simultaneous calls on the SIP trunk to more. Yeah, so that is also something that is included, but we are, in the end, we are really running very, very scalable there. We are very free based on the licensing. And of course, the amount of extensions, that is something where we are, in the end, not limited by the system. The only limitation that we have there, we will look at that then afterwards a little bit as well, is the amount or the hardware where the system is floating on or sitting on. Yeah, so it's the hardware requirements that give us there in a way a limitation. The hardware requirement overall, they're not so high. So from that perspective, if we spec the computer or the virtual machine where the system is running uh, on a on a certain size, we can get far with the system, even if we add additional extensions to it. Also, if we use it on a hosting platform like Azure or Google Cloud, if we use there a subscription that allows us to enhance the virtual machine with CPUs and RAMs and hard drive, then we can get actually really far there. in that regard. Now, the pricing model, as I said already, 36 doesn't license the system based on the amount of available extensions, but on the amount of simultaneous calls. Again, we have, for example, here in that example, we have a silent business that doesn't make much phone calls, has 80 extensions. They could get around with 16 simultaneous calls, which means that 16 calls at the same moment. That can be an extension calls another extension. That can be 8 outbound calls and then, for example, 7 inbound calls and 1 calls between 2 extensions. However, it's just the maximum amount of simultaneous calls that can be done on the system is 16. Then we might have an accountant business where they have the same amount of extensions with 32 simultaneous calls, or then we can have a call center with 80 extensions and then a call volume of, for example, 64 or even more simultaneous calls. Call center, of course, core business there is actually answering calls. So from that perspective, we have to have there a higher amount of simultaneous calls. And of course, when we add more users to it and the call volume would increase, we can upgrade the key at any given time. Now, when we look at what the 3CX system offers, when we look at hosted by 3CX, we have the two different licenses that are available by hosted by 3CX. We have a Pro and an Enterprise license. We have there unlimited ring groups and queues, OS 365 integration, CRM integration, call recording, hot desking, SMS and MMS messaging. We have video conferencing of up to 100 participants, amongst other features that are already in the startup included, like ring group, IVR, so digital receptionist, direct in-dial, all these kind of things. When we look at the enterprise, we have on top of the Pro license, we have skill-based routing. We can start, stop call recordings. We can have video conferencing there of up to 250 participants. We can have a custom IP phone logo. So in the IP phones, if we use IP phones, the background picture and the screensaver can be with the company logo. And we have a failover solution there. 3CX hosting means that 3CX freeze your time. So they give you space and time because they manage the phone system for you. 3CX deploys your instance to cloud providers, DigitalOcean or Vultr, and automatically configures the firewall rules. However, the firewall rules you generally configure once and then they are set. 3CX manages the 3CX operating system, including security patches and version upgrades. 3CX takes nightly backups. 3CX keeps your 3CX on the latest non-beta update version. 3CX monitors your 3CX system 24/7 and it is available for up to 750 extensions. Now, if you define or if you decide to go for your self-managed setup, you can have that again, as I said, you can have that hosted in your private cloud, Amazon, Google, Azure, and so on, or you can have it on premise. On premise means you have the server standing in your customer's own environment. That's generally not a big machine based on, like 50 extensions you can get around there with a very small um, uh, knock. However, when you have 2,500, 3,000, 4,000 users, you need then a bigger machine. Christopher asks, maximum 750 is low for enterprise. What about an Australian company with 2,000 employees? Front and back office require at least 1,500 extensions. That is something what you would do then here in a self-managed environment, so which means hosted in your own private cloud, Amazon, Google, Azure, or wherever, or you have that on premise. Generally, there is not really a limitation in terms of users on the system, to be honest. Yeah. But we look at that, we come further down the track, we look on how we can have those systems scaled and built. Again, we have there all the opportunities included, like Microsoft 365 integration, CRM integration, call queues, auto attendant, voicemail transcription, chat, call reports, and all that stuff. That's all on the Pro. We even have hotel PBX there. We can have a call flow designer where we can build more complex call routing options in a software tool that we then can upload to the system in order to build that complex routing solution beforehand. We upload it, that we can probably also test it on a test environment before. Yeah. Then on the dedicated enterprise, so we have everything that the Pro has included, but we additionally there have skill-based routing, start, stop, call recording rights, video conferencing with up to 250 participants, custom IP phone logo, and failover. Again, the same what we have in the hosted by 36, just on a scale where we then can go really, really big. Self-hosting on cloud and on-prem, we have on both ways full access, control of the system, freedom to choose the hoster, unlimited extension, depending on the hoster or VM based when we have it hosted. On-prem, it is depending on the hardware we use. Windows or Linux instance, we can have failover depending on the license we use, and of course we can connect to the system with VPN if possible, or if available, sorry. Now, how can 3CX be deployed? Since 3CX is a software-based phone system, it is not really bound to a fixed location and can therefore be either deployed on-premise or hosted in the cloud. On-premise, we can have it running on a bare metal machine or on hypervisors using Microsoft Hyper-V, VMware, KVM, or Citrix Xen Server. This can be installed on Windows 10, 11, Windows Server 16, 19, is it 22 or 23, and then Debian 12. If we host it in a cloud, we can have automated supported installs in AWS, Google Cloud, DigitalOcean, Microsoft Azure, and Amazon Lightsail, which means there is a in those stores, you can choose that you want to deploy 3CX with them, and then there is an automated script running in the background which literally sets up 3CX for you. You don't have to do too much there. Manual installation you can have on Vultr or wherever. When it if it's not an OpenStack version 2 supported hoster, you would have to install the virtual machine using the ISO from 3CX or whatever manually. Now, there are some specific requirements for deployments. More detailed explanation on that will be in the 3CX Advanced training, where we look deeper into on-prem or self-hosted installs. We have to have a fully dedicated operating system, so Windows, Linux, no third-party software like Exchange, SQL, DNS, or VPN installed on that machine. If we would run with a VPN from the branch or branches to the hosted 3CX, we would have to establish a hardware VPN. So the hoster would have to give us the opportunity to have a VPN set up there on the firewall. We have to have a fully configurable firewall in front of the 3CX. We have to have a RFC 1918 compliant internal network. Usually when we do that on a hosting provider, that is given. If we do it on-prem, we have to ensure that this is available. 3CX requires an FQDN. We look a little bit into that then at the very end. It can be either a 3CX FQDN or you can have your own FQDN using split DNS. Now, after the installation of 3CX, extensions, zip trunks, gateways, inbound and outbound rules can be added and the system is ready to go. Using extensions in a 3CX also allows the registration of multiple different devices to the same extension. This is called zip forking. As long as the credentials match, the device trying to register can register under the matching extension. We can have there IP phones, for example, in our office and at home, registering to the same extension. We can have the soft client or the web client on our notebook registering to the same extension. That gives us the opportunity that we can travel around worldwide and always have the phone connectivity enabled as soon as we have internet access. And we can have on the mobile phone, we can have a mobile client that is registering to the 3CX from everywhere as long as data is available. Now, when we install 3CX, we also have directly the onboard tools available. Usually, when we create an extension, a welcome email is being sent automatically to the user as long as an email address is entered into the email field of the extension or a working email address. Now with version 20, it is mandatory to add an email address inside there, but of course you can also add there a email address that is not working when you create an extension that doesn't have to receive any emails or what else ever. The onboard tools, the soft client, which is a Windows native app that fully integrates with the PBX and offers the following features, can run on a Windows PC, answer calls, establish calls, transfer, hold, park, queue, login, logout, BLF keys. It uses the 3CX tunnel, which is a dedicated tunnel between the devices that use the tunnel. That can be a SBC, that can be a another 3CX PBX, a bridged PBX in that case, or the mobile client, and of course the soft client. They use a tunnel which is encrypted and keeps all the audio traffic inside the tunnel. So it's like a reduced VPN connection, yeah, so highly secure. We can have chat, meeting, phone book, CTI control of desk phone, receptionist view, queue manager view, wallboard, barge in, whisper, listen. So literally all the features that you would expect for a soft client that can be added there or is already on the system. Also, what is you can have hotkeys on the system. You can define hotkeys, and that comes in handy if you, for example, have someone who requires hotkeys, for example, people with impaired vision, they highly rely on soft keys on that end. Then additionally, we have the web client. The web client is a browser-based phone client that uses WebRTC, also fully integrating with the phone system. We can again access that from everywhere because we literally use the PBX's HTTPS port. That can run on any Chrome or Edge browser. So from that perspective, you can have that even running on a Linux machine or on a Mac PC. It answers calls, establishes call, transfer, hold, park, queue, login, logout, BLF keys, chat, meeting, phone book. So everything what the 3CX has to offer, we can have on the web client as well. All we in the end require for these two solutions we looked at is a headset. That's all. We further then have the mobile client that is a tool or an application that runs either on our Android or on our iOS phone, where we have the ability to answer calls, establish calls, transfer, hold, park, queue, login, logout, chat, meeting, phone book. So we have the full flexibility of the answering calls, receiving calls, making calls, receive calls on an internal level. So because we are still there, an internal extension, even if we are not on site. So which is very, very useful when we are on the go somewhere. Doesn't matter where we are, if we are somewhere on an airport, if we are somewhere in another country, as long as we have internet connection, the mobile client will connect. The Progressive Web App is a browser extension that we can install that then literally does the same. The Progressive Web App can be used on Windows, Mac OS, Linux, Chrome OS, and only requires Chrome or Edge browser. And we have the whole system available there to answer calls, establish calls, transfer, hold, park, all these kind of things. Again, when we have a setup devices where we literally have not only Windows installed, where we need something else, then we can use the Progressive Web App. Desk phones can be added as well using VPN or 3CX SBC configuration. There is support for stun and manual configuration, but it is not advised because it's not fully supported. So 3.6 will not give any support on these technologies because there is plenty of other technologies around from 3.6 that we don't have to use stun. The following desk phone brands are fully supported: Yearlink, Snom, Fanvil. All of these three brands, they offer SBC phones, so phones that can act as SBC devices, which is in the end nothing else than a proxy, and then the phones can connect to the PBX, and by that we can overcome issues that we have when we use stun or manual configurations. We then have third-party supported phones like Grandstream and HTech. Other devices are supported like DECT phones, Yearlink, Snom, Gigaset, conference phones from Yearlink and Snom. We have door phones, PA systems, intercoms. Supported brands there are Cyberdata, Grandstream, Snom, Fanvil. We have FXS gateways and ATAs, Patent, Grandstream, Baronet. Legacy phones are also supported, so like older Avaya, Cisco, Astra, those kind of phones can also be added to the phone system. However, they then generally require a manual configuration. The supported desk phones, to say so, 3CX also supports their RPS provisioning, which means RPS provisioning is we create the extension, we add the MAC address of the phone and the model of the phone onto the extension. In the very moment when we save the extension, the provisioning information or the provisioning link is pushed to the vendor provisioning service. When the phone connects with the internet, the phone goes any factory defaulted IP phone at first connects to the vendor provisioning server and checks if there is any provisioning information located. With 3CX, since we have the system push the provisioning information or the provisioning link to the vendor provisioning service, when the phone comes up, there is data there already waiting for the phone. The phone gets redirected and connects to the 3CX and gets provisioned and automatically configures itself. So you can have there also zero touch configuration available. And if we talk about enterprises, if we talk about 2000 phones to provision, you know how easy this goes. CRM integration, integrating your 3CX system with your CRM, ERP, or accounting system is easy, especially with one of our supported CRM systems. You don't see your CRM listed or using a custom application. You can do the integration yourself using the 3CX API. So you see there's a wide range of CRMs supported. However, 3CX also offers the API, which is based on REST, to literally connect your CRM yourself if it's not in that list. Vendor supported for other CRMs listed below. We or a third-party provider have developed an integration which was working at the time of development. So the CRM is that's what is that 10 or 110 or 11 fresh sales, fresh works, and Nutshell. Then we have Office 365 integration. We can have sync status, sync of Office 365 contacts, Teams direct routing, Teams users call the 3CX users and vice versa. And we can also forward the calls from our 3CX extension to Teams. System features. When we look into call center availability or possibility with 3CX, we have the opportunity to use IVR digital receptionist. We can set that up in CID based call routing. So literally we check the caller ID, where the customer comes from. We can have that also with DIT-based call routing based on the number the customer called. We then can also create multi-level IVRs. So for example, based on the language, we can have then also the direct dial. So when someone knows someone's extension number that they can directly dial through there, there's a lot of possibilities are available there. We have call queues with skill-based routing. Skill-based routing requires the enterprise license key. We have live chat from a website directly into the queue. We have SMS. We have wallboard where we can see the stats of the actual calls today. We have SLA. We have callback option. We have call recording, opt-in, opt-out, amongst others. So a lot of stuff that we can then create there. We have reporting. We have reports available for queue calls, SLA statistics, queue performance, agent statistics, chat statistics, and many more. Of course, when we talk about chat, we come to chats then afterwards again. But what we also have for chat, we have chat logs that are enabled, and customers literally can stay there, or that the message stay there, and are available until deleted. Messaging. We have different ways of interacting with customers. Customers can contact us on WhatsApp, Facebook, SMS, and website live chat. All chat types in one easy interface, no separate interfaces for agents. So they literally come in all to the tool that we are using. Of course, we have to use one of the onboard tools. We can't have chat coming into an IP phone, for example. But if we use the web client, all the chats come into the web client into the same chapter. Into the we have then there the section between WhatsApp, SMS, Facebook chats, but it's still they're all there, and in the section then we have them all grouped below each other. Or if we use the soft client, we have it also there in the same way. Facebook messaging allows visitors of your Facebook page to chat directly with your business, to a user or to a queue. You define that then when you set up the chat there. It requires a Facebook account, no cost to the customer or you as a business. SMS, this availability depends on the system license, and also we require a SMS provider for that. There are pre-selected providers, and one of them is required to actually allow us to receive chat notifications or SMS notifications into the chat. SMS, we can then also establish chats to mobile numbers. That is also possible through the system. We can send and receive SMS messages. The numbers are resolved from the PBX public personal phone books. We require a pro or enterprise license for sending. Account with one of the pre-selected providers. Incoming SMS to predefined numbers to a user or to a queue. Live chat allows direct interaction with web visitors. We can have chat only, voice call, or video call. That can be defined. That, for example, when you have a chat and the customer and the agent have a little bit difficulty understanding each other, that the customer can establish a voice call straight out of the chat. All he, of course, requires would be a headset with a microphone and a speaker, or of course, just on his notebook, microphone speaker. It can come from a customer to a user or to a queue. There is no cost to you or the customer. Again, chats can be escalated to a telephone or video call. There is a customizable interface. You can adjust that to the color scheme of your website or your customer's website. There's support for WordPress, Drupal, Joomla, Wix, Squarespace, and Weebly. WhatsApp messaging allows direct interaction via WhatsApp. It is a dedicated number that is required, so that's a restriction from WhatsApp. So that number that you use for the WhatsApp messaging cannot be used otherwise, and a business account is required. The chat messaging has to come in from the customer's end. Again, that is a restriction from Meta. There's no possibility that a chat can be established from within the PBX to the customer. So the WhatsApp message can come in from a customer to a queue, and there is no cost to you or to the customer from that perspective. Additionally, you have to answer to the message that the customer sent within 24 hours. That again is a restriction from Meta. We have web meeting that can be set up, that can be planned. Only the browser is required for guests, no software is required. So they receive the meeting link. They click on the link when the meeting starts or on time when it's scheduled. They click on the link and they join the meeting. Same like what we have with Google Meet, what we have with Teams, what we have with Zoom when we have no software installed. We can have recording of the video conferences. We can have background blur, whiteboard, chat. It can be streamed to YouTube. Chromecast is available. We can create polls and other features are included there. There are restrictions in the amount of people that can attend. With the Pro license, we have up to 100 participants. With Enterprise, we have up to 250 participants. There is coming. Yes, you can also do screen sharing, of course. Yeah, definitely. Yes. That is something what I have not added here. Sorry about that. There is actually a new version of the web meeting coming up where you can have the web meeting server on-prem. So where you don't then rely on the web meeting server for 3CX itself, where you actually host the server yourself. I'm not sure exactly when this is going to be released, but that is announced and should be coming soon. Now, 3CX system deployment. We have covered a lot of 3.6 features, and you might understand that 3.6 is perfect for enterprise communication. I quickly have to bring in one feature what we had recently, where you could see how flexible 3.6 is. 2020, March 2020, all you remember, we had a pandemic. Everyone had to go and work from home. With 3CX, nothing easier than that. You packed your notebook or your computer at home, you moved that home, and you plugged everything in and you continued to work. You used either the soft client that you had already installed on your computer, or you did use the web client. Was not on that level back then how it is now, but you had more or less seamless possibility. You just took your computer device, took your screens from the work office, moved it home, had it installed, connected the device to the internet, and you continued to work without any break. Because 3.6 was already set up for working, connecting to the server, and for example, using the soft client, it wouldn't matter where you are because the server connects either locally or remote. Even if we had at our office, we had the computer locally, I went home and the 3.6 connected using the FQDN and was literally straight away connected with the server, and I could continue to work. Everyone on our end could continue to work. We had nothing to reconfigure, absolutely no issues. That's one of the absolute beauties of 3.6, that you can move people around. We see that afterwards in a couple of slides. How easy you can also move the system across different operating systems or from prem to hosted, whatever. Again, since 3.6 is limited by licensable features only and can be increased in size based on this, it is only really limited by the hardware capacity else. Therefore, it is very important to plan the system with plenty of capacity to have 3.6 unlocking its real capacity without too much hardware changes. Of course, there will always come a hardware change in a way, but this hardware that becomes end of life, the computer's operating system has to be upped. We have next year, for example, one of these examples when we are forced to shut down or move from Windows 10 to Windows 11 because Windows 10 becomes end of life. So from that perspective, if someone has his 3CX still sitting there on Windows 10 and can't update that system to Windows 11 because the computer is too old, then yeah, you have to change the hardware underneath. But that's something that is literally done in no time, to be honest. Yeah. So it's not too much work that is required to have that stuff updated or changed. Backup. Backup is available and can be stored locally in Google Bucket, SMB, Azure, SFTP, FTP. You can have the bucket daily, taken daily or weekly or monthly. You define the amount of rotations, and then you define if you want to include the recordings. However, if you have a lot of recordings, there also we have, or with 3.6, you have the opportunity to create offsite archiving, which makes much more sense in that regard. So also there you can have Google Bucket for offsite archiving, all these kind of things. That's also all these things are looked at when we in the 3CX in the advanced training, or the backup might be in the basic. I don't remember anymore. But yeah, so from that perspective, all these opportunities are given, and then you can have the backup encrypted via password. Now, when we move the 3.6. We can move the 3.6 on premise from Windows to Linux or vice versa, or we can move it from on-prem to hosted, and there from Windows to Linux, or from Linux to Windows, or from Windows to Windows, or from Linux to Linux. And then we can move it from hosted to hosted by 3CX, or we can move it from hosted by 3CX to self-hosted. We always use the same backup. There is no difference in the backup that we use despite of from where we come and to where we go. And the amount of time that you use for a backup to install comes down then there to the power that the machine has, so to the specifications of the hardware that we use there. If we have more capacity in terms of RAM, CPU, and hardware, a hard drive, we have also more capacity to restore the backup faster. Again, in order to keep the backup not too big, definitely advisable to have call recordings, for example, archived separately, which is also then pretty easy because once the backup has been restored and the system is up and running, all the linking to the archive for the call recordings is back up again on the phone system. So there is nothing to include like say, we have to relink the archive. And that's all a part of the backup that will be restored. Failover, as we all know, the uptime of a PBX is absolutely crucial. If the phone system is down, the business is down. This term is still valid. I always say when you mess up the mail server, you probably get a reward from your customer because he doesn't get too much spam and all that stuff. But if the phone system is down, he probably would want to shoot you to the moon. It is business that is lost if the phone system is down. 3CX failover is included in the enterprise license, and offers a downtime of absolute maximum 30 minutes if the server 1, the primary server, goes down. Usually it is much faster. You see always the term FQDN inside there. We will look at that then further down quickly, why it makes so much sense to have an FQDN. Makes a lot of sense in that regard. Now, what I would like to go with you now is to look at a build-up of a system that we have on a, let's say, on-prem, a small on-prem install that we have, and we blow that up then to something completely different. Now, we have a local deployment of a PBX that can be of any size, that can be of a two-man show, it can be a one-man show, whatever, but it also can be a 500 extension system, or however much space is there in that office, in that building. Yeah, can be a whole building with how many thousand people. All comes down to network capacity, comes down to the 3CX server. Yeah, but we can have that setup. That is a basic setup. That's a setup where 3CX was literally like couple of years ago, where you had mainly all the phone systems and all that stuff on site. They probably didn't have the mobile client back then there. I follow 3CX since 2006. Version 3 was the first one I looked at. Was completely different back in the day, so they have come a very, very long way. So that would be like a very, very basic setup, very easy, very simple. Now, I have a duplicated slide there, interestingly. Anyway, so if we jump in here, we add an external extension, mobile client using Wi-Fi and trunk provider, and a notebook with the soft client, and they can jump in from the system from remote. They visit a customer, and literally are available from remote, wherever they are. All they need is a internet access. Now we say, okay, the company is growing. The company is growing in that way that they have somewhere else. Let's say the right side is Melbourne. On the left side, we add, let's say, Sydney. We still have the PBX on premise in the Melbourne location, and we add now an office in Sydney. We add there a SBC, that's a hardware SBC, because we can manage more phones there on the back then, and they connect all through the SBC using the encrypted tunnel to connect directly to the 3CX. But they use internal extensions on that phone system from within the Sydney office. We can also have people who connect from the Sydney office via laptop using the web client, and then we have someone then there also who uses a PC using the soft client. Now we realize, okay, we come a little bit to the bandwidth limitation on the Melbourne office. We probably better move the 3CX to the cloud. We spin up a virtual machine, either in Azure or AWS or what else ever, and we use the same backup of the system and deploy that in the cloud. We use the same FQDN for the phone system, and since the phones use also that FQDN, they will straight away reconnect to the phone system without having the need to be reprovisioned or whatever. Also on the notebook, we use the same FQDN, everything stays the same. The phones are getting provisioned or the phones are getting connected, and we can continue to use our sessions in the web client or with the soft client on the PC or even on the mobile clients when we are on the go or even on the one of the branches. Looking again at the slide before, we see that we can move the 3CX wherever we want. Using the onboard tools, the system can be reached at any time as long as there is an internet connection on the extension's end. The line devices extensions in this example can be same different extensions, same different models, phone brands, mobile devices, can be mobile phones, tablets, notebooks, can connect to the system from anywhere. Users can be connected from anywhere. This gives us then even more capacity in that regard. We now do not talk about anymore that we have on the right side Melbourne, on the left side that we have there Sydney. We talk about that we have on the right side Australia, and on the left side we add the USA to it. Now, the company has grown and grown and grown, and all of a sudden they open a branch in the States. We spin up a phone system over there. Of course, that one we have to set up from scratch because that is a new install, that's a new deployment, or maybe they they take over a system that already, a business that already uses 3CX. We can also do that there. And all what we do there is, quickly take my pen, all what we do there then is we bridge them together. We create the bridge between the two phone systems, and with the result that we literally can call internally from here in Australia to over here to the States. We can even do more. With the proper call routing, I can actually say when everyone here in the States, the agents are asleep, we in Australia, we have day, and we also speak English over here. So have support calls, routed support calls that come here over the zip trunk. Of course, we can use multiple trunks and multiple providers. We are not limited to only one. Route them over to Australia and have them answer the call 24/7. The same over here with Australia. When it's Australia, it's now that the agents are sleeping, have the calls routed over to support USA. And that doesn't only have to be one support hotline, that can be multiple support hotlines. Yeah, this can be even routed based on the originator's call number. Where are they coming from? Do they come from a mobile network where I can't really determine if they come from Washington State or if they come from Arizona or where else ever? Or do we do it based on the state prefix? Yeah, we can do the same here in Australia as well. We can do that even when the Australian system is literally alone, so not with the bridged situation. Yeah. On the other hand, with that ability where we see where the call is coming from, we can create the call routing that way that when I have a lost call here and it shows me, let's say, a +1 number, I call it back and it goes over here and it makes the outbreak into the American network. That can all be created. Now, using 3CX, we can not only use the system on premise with local and remote extensions or hosted with remote extensions, but also using worldwide setups with multiple 3CXs in different continents, allowing big companies using the whole infrastructure they need. Cross-system calls, cross-system presence, cross-system inbound, outbound call routing, cross-system call transfers, PSTN calls to other continents using the remote bridge. If configured, users can even change their account from one PBX to the other one when traveling, e.g. from Australia on business trip to Asia and register there on to the Singapore 3CX for the company to avoid latency. Yeah. So we can really go big. This then can lead, for example, to that situation. We have the 3CX sitting here in Melbourne, and we have people traveling all over the world, and they all connect back to here, either using the mobile client, or they use the soft client on their notebook, or they use the web client on their notebook, or they go here into we have a branch here or what else ever, and they have a computer here. They log into there, use the web client. Of course, they would require username, password then to have that done. But if we use our mobility that we have nowadays with mobile devices, tablets, notebooks, you can literally go everywhere and you are connected. Bridging. This setup gives us the opportunity to literally have 3CX systems standing all across the world. They all can be interconnected using a bridge, and doing so, we can configure them to have calls coming in, like for solutions like 24-hour support in different languages, and also have outbreak with local numbers. So literally what I was just explaining before. So the ability of the system to really go global is there. Yeah. And of course, we can then, when we have these systems standing somewhere, and we then at some point, the company decides, we want to go away from the cloud and we want to go back to premise. We take the backup, we spin up machines locally on the servers local, and the system is still working because all the devices connect back to the FQDN. The FQDN of a 3.6 phone system is in the end nothing else than oops, sorry. Or we have in New Zealand, I think in New Zealand it's NZ, and then for the UK it's co.uk, and then for USA it's .com. In Germany, it's .de and so on. And that's when we use A3CX. But of course, you can use your own domain. Yeah. Now, since we always use that FQDN, in whatever changes we do, if we change the IP address underneath, the phones, the apps, everything will always link back to that FQDN. Doesn't matter if we change the IP address below or what else ever. All that is required is we have to make sure that the IP change is actually actively going through to the relevant DNS servers. Now, 3CX with enterprise, with the 3CX FQDN, 3CX pushes the pushes the DNS change actively. So with the right setup, I can show you the DNS change in Google within 2 minutes. Yeah. So that is working. It could it could be that you bring it down faster, but yeah, 2 minutes is definitely working. Yeah. So that goes then when we, for example, have a change of public IP, when we change the ISP in front of the 3CX, if it's an on-prem deployment, if we switch from hosted to on-prem, if we switch between hosters, or if we have failover from server 1 to server 2, that all comes into then where we use the FQDN. If we have one FQDN, which is always the address for that system. Of course, every PBX requires then a different FQDN, but still the phones would always link back to their home base, even if the IP underneath changes. Which means generally we do not have to change anything on the devices because they always connect back to the same FQDN. And if under the FQDN the IP changes, that's just a DNS relevant point. And what we figured is that in most of the cases when that DNS change is not happening, it is that the on-site DNS of the customer is set to update the DNS tables like every 24 hours. And that's then when the issue comes in. But generally, the DNS is like if we use Google or 111, they change very, very fast.